ones, right? I think so. Maybe not. Someone like Levis. Yeah. Now it's Maharal. Yeah, Maharal. No, it's Maharal on what the Torah is. It's Maharal has a book called Tiferes Yisrael about the nature of Torah.
That's what it's means? The nature of Torah?
Yeah. Reb Toby, will it be Shalom Aleichem? Will it be helpful to if I share the screen and put it up again? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Great, I'm doing it.
Aleichem Shalom.
Okay. That's a very unknown Shlomo Niggun that we did at Malka's wedding in Florida. You know Malka? You know Malka, you guys know her? That Niggun. That was at the chuppah. That was her chuppah. Yeah, it was a gaval. It was very magic. Is she? I don't think she got here. I would know if she's not yet. No. They're coming. They're making Aliyah. No. They're supposed to. They're time. They're. Okay, this is a really amazing chapter. Maharal, I hope I could do it justice. Hashem. Yes, great to see you. Vayered Hashem al Har Sinai. Hashem descended upon the mountain of Sinai. This is kind of like the Maharal on anthropomorphism. Like the Maharal, what does it mean when we describe Hashem going down to Har Sinai? Can you say that about Hashem? What is that? An amazing paragraph, amazing chapter. It's a gaval. Binyan hayirida hazois v'chayotze b'zeh. This coming down to the mountain and the chayotze b'mashaba b'tor Nevi'im, what we find in the Torah and in the Nevi'im. First of all, he says the opinion of the Rambam, Maimonides. Binyan zeh ki hayirida v'abiyah hanemar tzal Hashem yisbarach mevi gashmut. But to say such a thing implies physicalizing or some kind of physical aspect of Hashem. Therefore, he holds that the fact that Unkelus, the translation of Unkelus on Erda, I shall go down, is Itgali. And Ve'ered is also Ve'itgali, I will reveal. That it's not a question of moving some from up to down, it's just being more or less revealed. Hakol leharchika gashmut. So it says the Rambam, the reason why the Unkelus translates it that way is in order to distance himself from implying any kind of physicality to Hashem. Except for some special places. For instance, when Hashem says to Yaakov, Anochi Ered Imcha Mitzrayim, which means something different. It doesn't mean up and down. It means I'll be with you there in Mitzrayim. Anochi Al Chagam alone, I'll come up with you. Shetirgam Anochi Eichut Imach. Eichut means to go down. V'ana Asaknach, and I will bring you up. Ve'ericha Rambam Zal, Ram has lots of discussion of this. The Haramban Zal, whereas Nachmanides, Parshas Vayigash, two parshas from now, Heshiv Olav, he answered against the Rambam. V'daita shekol zel unkelus l'tam nifla b'sodo. He says, Unkelus is talking about something very wondrous and secret, and not like the Rambam thinks because he's worried about we shouldn't imply any physical aspect to Hashem. Umnamani omer, but I say, says Maharal, ki lo ratza Unkelus la'archika gashmut. Unkelus is definitely not. He's more on the side of the Ramban. Was not meaning to distance himself from physicality. None of these things actually imply physicality to Hashem. If chas v'shalom these expressions would imply physicality, how could we say chas v'shalom? That means that we have to edit or kind of smooth over the Torah. The Torah, in other words, we'll translate it. We'll have to kind of like change the simple meaning, because the simple meaning can't really be that implied. That means the Torah itself is implying something problematic. And even though it's true that the Torah does speak, so you could answer back and say, indeed, we know that the Torah is given in a human language, and therefore is not meant to be taken literally. But, says Maharal, Gam Dibra L'saber et ha'ozen. It's also given to us. L'saber can also mean like hope, to give hope to the ear, to be able to understand something by saying something that is a sort of a physical implication. Aval dvarim daber dvarim shemevi emunah bilti shleima davar ze'eno kolal. It cannot be that the Torah in any way implies something to take away from total faith, like complete faith. It can't be that is. That can't be. You have to understand all the descriptions in the Chumash of Hashem. None of them. Why don't we just click on the air conditioning so we can have it closed and still have. You see the red behind on the wall over there? Just press. I think it's the red button. Whatever the on button is. Which song? His song?
Yeah.
Oh, can't hear what he's singing.
Good. Then we'll move on.
No, try again.
Just started playing.
Did he?
That's really cool. I didn't hear it before either.
Yeah, Pastor, maybe it didn't make the battery die or something. So, doesn't mess with the sound. You can hear me okay, yeah? Did we? Okay, so okay. This that it says that Hashem came down on Har Sinai. Descended upon the mountain. We have to understand what the Torah is and how the Torah speaks, right? It's not like the Torah is sort of hobbled by having to speak in human language, but you really want to know what it's saying, it's not saying. No, the Torah is saying something true and real without impinging at all upon God's like transcendentness, as you can explain. They're spoken klapei ha'adam, from the perspective of a human being. This was the real, true, lived experience of the people there, was God coming down upon the mountain. That is what they experienced, that God descended upon this mountain. And since that is how it was indeed so in the experience of the people, even though if from God's own perspective, so to speak, in the truth of his own being. Eina davar kach. The matter is not so. There wasn't not to do anything. Rak shekach nimtza el ha'adam. Only that this was how it was. This is what the reality was for the person, meaning the human experience. Yomar alav, therefore it is totally true for the Torah to say what it says. Kafi mashu nimtza el ha'adam. The way that it was experienced by the human being. Says, now I'm going to narich tzad kadei shenedah tshuva davar zeh. Ki ra'ui shenemar al Hashem yisbarach k'fi asher hu yitbarach nimtza la'adam u'k'fi asher hu mekabel ha'adam kach nomar alav. It makes sense and it's proper to speak about Hashem from the way that Hashem is experienced by people. That is a true way of speaking. It's not something that's not true and we just have to live with. It's something that's true. It's real. The psukim and their simple meaning is, you tell a 5-year-old kid Hashem came down on Har Sinai. It's real. You're not lying to him. It's real, right? From the perspective of the human experience. And now he gets to this really cool thing. He relates this up to the fact that Adam gave names to all of the creatures, which he seems to, the way it seems, well, you're so Hebrew through the word, it doesn't just mean names, it means all language, seems to me, in any case. We'll see. That it's mamash of psukim and chumash, very interesting psukim and chumash. That Hashem made all these animals. I think this is Perek Bet with the retelling of the creation story. Hashem brings all the animals and brings it to Adam to see what name he'll call them. Very interesting concept, right? Lirot ma'ikralo. Adam, nefesh chaya, hushmo, and anything that the Adam called it, that was its name. Hashem brought all of these lower beings, all the creations, over to Adam. This matter is something, a big deal. It is dafka, the human task. It is the human being who can name. Because he says, why is it dafka the human being? This seems to be, he's explaining maybe why. Because in this world, everything is relative. The way you relate to them, because air, from the perspective of water, is called hot. Avir neged mayim nikra cham, v'nikra kar be'erech ha'esh shehu cham yoter. Okay, he's using maybe some Aristotelian natural theory, but in any case, the point is the same for us, that the same thing can be considered hot and cold. Depends what you're comparing it to, right? Okay.
The sound that the person makes the reality.
Right. In order for things to come into fruition, they have to make a sound. Yeah.
The man was making sound.
That's
when you have a child,
right.
You call him a name.
I call him a name. Yeah.
Same with potential. Potential life. Like what is name is going to be.
Totally. So this thing of potential and actual, and the process of actualizing potential, that's something only people have. Angels are fully actualized seichel. Animals, they have a potential that is actually, maybe some kind of but not like, they're like wandering around, who am I? What, how can I self-actualize? But the human being, because he has that question, or she, so therefore, it's the most. I'll tell you my favorite Hasidic story. It's like my number one favorite Hasidic story. For years, it's been my favorite Hasidic story. There are other, in terms of like an interaction between Rebbes. So there was, in Europe, there was a great Rebbe called Reb Simchat Shlomo, very special Rebbe, really a unique person. And the best part about him is that his students were all very different from each other, which is a good sign. When teachers create carbon copies, something is messed up. So, so in any case, the Sichabunim, Ger, Kotsk, Ishbitz, Alexander, and a number of other Hasidus all came from him, and each one had their own flavor, their own way. And the Alexander Hasidus, which pretty much died out, I don't know, probably a handful of them somewhere in Beirut, but like there used to be thousands of them before the war. And the first Rebbe was Rav Gershon Hanuch of Alexander. And one time he was wandering in the forest. And I saw, by the way, that this is also was one of Eli Wiesel's, Oliver Shalom's favorite stories also. He was wandering in the forest, and that I saw in a book by my friend Ariel Berger, which everyone should read. It's called Witness, an amazing book about it. In any case, Rav Gershon Hanuch of Alexander wandering in the forest, and he bumps into his Rebbe. And the Reb Simchat Shlomo says to him, you look like something's wrong. You look not all the way. And he says, Rebbe, Baruch Hashem, I learned Tanakh, and I've learned Shas, and I've learned Poskim, and I've learned Medrash, and I've learned Kabbalah, and I learned Chassidus, and I daven all day. I just don't know who I am. I just don't know who I am. And Reb Simchat Shlomo says, I've had that same question my whole life. Come to my house for dinner. That's the end of the story. My favorite story, the deepest story in the world. Why? Because we're going to join together and figure it out along the way. And there isn't an answer. And it's not something that stops. It's forever. And good that you have a question, So, and there's now a deeper bond between them. It's not just about achieving a goal, getting the end of the book, getting the end of this, that. That's a good one. So it's very interesting. We're going to see. He's going to talk about this. What's that? That's the deepest secrets. Everything is all, the names that they have are all relative to the way you're relating to them. And all of those things in creation, this is like a little bit with the imagery of the throne, they all relate back to the Adam, who is the essence of the creatures in this world, in this physical world. Therefore, he's the one who gives them names. Because of all of the relativities that there are, the real relative thing is, how do they relate to the human experience? That's what's important about it. That's what's essential about it. Lo kafi Hashem yisachim in the davar zulatze, not the way that they relate to anything else. Is the person, right? You could have had names and language from any other perspective of the creation, but that's not the essence. The essence is the human experience. The Yosem is af shmo yisparach, even Hashem's own name. Everything else, even God, Kaviyachol, is a character in the story of human development. Hashem wants to make space for us, right? And let us be at the center. Just take a little plunge for a second and tell you, in the Sefer Eitz Chaim, when it starts off talking about the Tzimtzum, where Hashem had this, the Or Ein Sof, it says Hashem created a vacated space within which to have creation. Where did he make the vacated space? He said, at the center, in the Merkaz of the Or Ein Sof. Which is a very big question. What does that mean? Because it's Ein Sof. Where's the center? Any point is equally the center as any other point. I think this latest under theory is that even though it's forever and ever and ever, and God is so big, that He wants us to know that we're central. Really important. My parents had lives before they had me, but now I'm the apple. It's not a perfect analogy, but the point is, Hashem wants us to know He's really committed and we're central. In any case, He gave, because in the Medrash, Adam even gives the name to God. And here he brings the Medrash. Breshis Rabba Pasha Yudzayin B'Shah She'amar Kadosh Baruch Hu Livro Sa Adam Nimach V'Chashos. When Hashem first created Adam, He went and consulted with the angels. As a, yeah, it's locked on. I can't fix it. It's a long story. You could try to unscrew the teeny light bulb. It's very hard for you to do because you have to take the whole point of it. Anyways, Amalem Nase Adam. He said to all the angels, let's make an Adam. Amalo Mativo. What's he going to be like? Amalem Chochmatom Rabba Meruba Mishalachem. He's going to be wiser than you, he tells the angels. How did he show this to them? He brought before them, maybe this name Chayavot. He brought before them wild animals and birds. Amar lahem, Zeh Mativo. What are these things called? Below Hayu Yodi. The angels had no idea. He brought them for the Adam, he was able to. Amar Zeshmo Shor, Vezeshmo Chamor, Vezesus, Vezegamal. Amar Lo Ve'ata Mashimcha. Hashem said to Adam, and you, what's your name? Amar Li Na'eh Likro Adam. I should be called Adam. Shanini Vreiti Min Hadama. I was created from earth. And then Hashem says, Vani Mashmi. What am I? What's my name? That's one of the most amazing midrash. No, it's Kabbalah midrash. And Na'eli Krotcha Ado Shem. Right? It's best to call it Aleph Daled Nun Yud. Sha'ata Adon Hakol, because you are the master of all. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu. It's like a fit. Like my son, I was telling before, I took my son Baruch Hashem today to the tefillin maker, and he put them on. And he sized them up to his head. When he put them on, he's like, this is like right. Your mom is 12 years old. It blew my mind. He's like, my head was made for this. The children were made for my head. It was like this. And mom's amazing thing. The rightness. It's a gaval. It's something you can't gold. Bir zeh. Re'uyim anivraim shikra lahem ha'adam. Shamed us. So Hashem himself says, Ani hu shmi. That's even Hashem Kiviyachol had that sense of, that's my name. Right? Like, like fit. Aleph Dal Nun Yud. That you're right. Taka, that's my name. That's an amazing moment. Unbelievable. Bir zeh. The explanation of this, Re'uyim hanivraim shikra lehem ha'adam shem daf, makes sense for all creations that it should dafka be the human being gives them a name. Lezeh. Ki ha'adam hu ha'ikar ba'olam. But all this, remember, all this he's doing is to explain anthropomorphisms in Chumash, the way, how can we attribute to God coming down on the mountain, and God getting sad or angry or happy and so on, because all of these things he's going now to the core concept of what does it mean to look at creation from the human experience, from the perspective of the human experience. Everything's relative. You could call anything. It's hot compared to this. It's cold compared to that. You could call things all different ways, but it's the human perspective that is the central one, and the truest. And that's why all these psukim, we're going to see this again, are real. You tell the kid Hashem came down on Har Sinai. It's true. Yeah.
Remember learning that if you name something, it's your so
Very interesting. Very interesting. If you have a pet and you never gave it a name and then it dies, it's not as big of a deal as if Snuffles just died or whatever it is. It's very interesting. He's saying it creates a deeper bond with the thing when you name it. Very fascinating. There's a lot of depth to this chapter. This is like mamish, deep sea diving over here. Bir is that it's the human being that is the essence of all of reality. It's the essence of the universe. There's a book called the Anthropic Principle. Have you heard of it? What? I'm pretty sure that's what it's called, the Anthropic Principle. It's this book about how incredibly unlikely it is for human beings to develop from the Big Bang until now. Just purely from the scientific perspective, everything that had to happen, and the chances are so so many zeros, and a one like so many. Yeah.
Calculation of quantitative biology. What's the probability of a mutation going forward, and why is it the same probability of mutation going back? So then we see dinosaurs coming back.
Right.
And it comes out to numbers that are stranger than 1 over however long they want to calculate the history of the universe. Means it's impossible. That's basically
longer than the whole history. It's beyond. So the chances are so incredibly low that what the book is about is that it seems as if the human being was like sof ma'aseh v'machshava tchila. It seems like the whole universe was just waiting to make a human being. Otherwise, the chances are so low. It's just too crazy. Like flipping a coin, 10 billion times, and every time it lands on heads or something like that. I don't remember exactly. I think it's probably less than that. Therefore, it makes sense for all language and all things. Again, he's explaining how the Torah talks, right? And that it's legit for the Torah to talk from a human perspective, saying it's not just that the Torah, the very names of everything, the very language and the whole thing of talking about reality is meant to be from a human perspective. And this is a good one. Something came up with my PhD a lot. Don't pay attention to people who say that the Galgalim v'malachim hem yoter b'mala min hadam. This is a big debate that the philosophers, to some extent, the philosophers versus the Kabbalists, and but it's because is Adam really the essence of all of creation, or is Adam just the best of the physical creatures? But of course, even the smallest star is greater than the greatest person. So Maharal is very staunchly on the human side of things. Don't pay attention to anyone who tells you that the Galgalim and Malachim hem yoter b'ma'alam min hadam are a higher level than the entire human race. Shekvar bi'aru chachamim lo makom echad, rak kama makomot, ki kol elyonim nivru l'shamesh adam, even the highest of the high, all the very angels themselves, and this is also Rabbi Nachman, who we were speaking about before, Rabbi Nachman in Torah 1 in the second section of the Quran is exactly all about this. Even all the angels, Adam Nivra, Rabbi Nachman says, Shalom Memshala al HaMalachim. Get back into Rabbi Nachman and Maharal. Chachni kriyat shem ra'ui la'adam. And therefore, since Adam is really, truly the center, therefore, naming befits the human being. V'gamel Hashem Yisparach, even vis-a-vis God, hayakoreh shem, sheyesh el HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'olam hanivra. That is the way that God is related to by created beings as master. Hashem is our master. Hashem is leading us. Ulechach karov Hashem b'shem aleph daled b'shem miuchad ki v'mashu miuchad hu nivdal min hanimtzeh. Kvar bi'arz. Ulechach amar lo ki ra'ui likro Kadosh Baruch Hu b'mashu mityaches la'adam. It makes sense that Hashem should be called by Adam, because that's even for God within what language is and the way that language is to be employed within this created world. It should be from the perspective of Adam, of humanity, which is the center of the whole thing. Since Adam is the essence of reality, so therefore all things make sense for them to be called and named from the perspective of the way that they are relating to the human experience. And that's what it means when Hashem says to the angels, the wisdom of a human being is greater than of yours. There's where he speaks with this thing about being full. Even though the angels are of great consciousness, and they have what's called seichel b'foal. They're completely actualized consciousness, the angels. know how to exactly translate that. So that's like Mikom Makom Hashem Shehu Mora Al Amitat Hadavar. Even though they are that, and they bring that energy of total actualized consciousness, whereas the human being is always has more to actualize. That place of having more to actualize is higher because it's infinite. There's more and more and more, right? And therefore, it's the Adam who can give a name. Hashem Tumor Mit, the real truth of the thing, the real truth of what Hashem wants is not static, actualized consciousness. It's the dynamism of a human being trying and messing up and having experience and figuring things out and building relationships and so on, doing tshuva.
Makes us different language. It's a combination of languages. People like in different places and they
That's a very interesting thing to take this and look at how the different languages have. So Lashon HaKodesh, he's not really talking here about the concept of Lashon HaKodesh, the holy languages. It's a very important concept. We're not going to get into that right now. But in any case, even though the Malachim Maskim Sichum B'Pol Mikom Makom Hashem Tumel Amitat, the real truth of the thing, the truth of what it's really all about. It's the human being who should be calling names to the world. And just as it is, that the person is the essence of reality. Just like the center point of a circle, that the entire circle revolves around that and is defined by that. It's all that. The circle is all those points equidistant from that center point. That's what it is. Magbelet, it gives reality and form, and it's from the perspective of that central point. The whole circle is literally the perspective of the center point. That's like what it is. And so too all of reality is, it's not false to say the reality is the perspective of the human being on it. Amazing how much with physics this relates. The whole circle, it comes to existence because of that center point. It's the essence and center, and therefore it gives form and border. It gives reality to what the circle is. So too all of reality is called from the perspective of how it relates back to the human being. That he is the essence of the whole thing. That's why it says. That's why Hashem told the angel, you might be on a higher level than him. But what he has, that perspective the human being has, because I made a world for the stories of the people. I made a world for people to live and build and create lives and with self-actualize and that's bigger, that's greater than the static perfection of the angels. Even though, right? Sorry. מלאכים גם כן משיגים יודעים, היינו כי יודעים זה מצד האדם, גם כן, וקוראים על השם יתברך מצד שהוא אדון הבריות, שהוא אדם קורא לו השם. Even the angels that they call out to Hashem and call Hashem the master is because Adam first called him that. אבל מצד עצמם אין להם דבר, אבל האדם מצד עצמו קורא לו השם הזה. Even the name of Hashem. וכן לכל שער נמצאים, כל האדם קורא השם והמלאכים עצמם אומרים כן. קרא האדם שמו. The angels echo. And that's also the Gemara says, when we say, only after we say Kadosh, Kadosh, in Shul can the angels say, because he's more essential. He is at the center of reality. You are, as great as you are, you're at the periphery. Here's this in there, I'm not sure what he means. That ki emtza'it hadavar hu ikar hadavar v'davar zeh yadua. Okay, whatever is the middle is the essence. Ulefi zeh hakol mityaches l'adam shu ikar. And he says, maybe I'll describe this further somewhere else. This concept, the middle point. So, we've explained that the naming of things, that's something that must come from the human being. So therefore, why should we be in any state of wonder or surprise? Asher katava yered Hashem, that Hashem went down on the mountain, or anything else in Chumash. Ki adam karei shemot lakol. It's the human being who calls names. It's the human being who is the crux, the center point of language in the universe. The kevan shehu karei shemot umitzad ha'adam nemar sheyered oba ki kach mekabel kvod Hashem shebal har Sinai. Umachar Hashem Yisbarach nimtza elav lechach ein kushya klal ki zehu ikar hagadol. This is the very essence of all. Shalav nivnei dvarim gdolim ki Hashem Yisbarach nimtza lefi hamekabel. Hashem exists or is experienced according to the receiver, and that's what the Chumash is doing. Uvulai tamar ki mitzad haseichel lo shayach bo yerida. And even if you ask, wait a minute, we really think this God went down? It's so childish. God went down, descended on Mount Sinai. What does that mean? Hare ein ha'adam hu seichel lagamrei. Well, the human being is not just a perfect, completely actualized consciousness. Lefichach yomar bo yitbarach yerida kefi ma shehu mekabel hu ha'adam. Therefore, it is correct and it is fine to say that Hashem descended on Har Sinai, because that is what it felt like. That is what it was. When we stood around Har Sinai, there was a sense God came down from Shemayim, and that was the human experience of. Even though, like he said before, mitzad amitat atzmo ein hadavar kain. He said that mitzad amitat atzmo, from God's own truth, it was not so. He did not descend. But from the human being's perspective, and that's not just a childish thing, it's not a b'di'evet, it's not a false thing, it's a true thing. When you tell the 5-year-old God came down on Mount Sinai, and when you even think of the way it felt and try to imagine it, like the poskim even say you should when we make the bracha, I think the Bach says, Asher bachar banu mikol amim and nasal lanos terasai, that when did Hashem choose us? It was a Har Sinai. Just to be thinking about Har Sinai, we make that bracha every day. And the experience was a real experience of Hashem descending on the mountain. The Gambi Arzin of Hashem Baruch Nirebil Vadam Kabel Ba'ofen Zesha Yored the Barzaino Raku Kach Be'emet Nimtza Ki Adam Hu Yorel Ar Sinai V'Adam Kareh Shem Kasher Nimtzala. It doesn't just mean that it's just appeared that way to the receiver. Ba'ofen Zesha Yored Raku Kach Be'emet Nimtza. The truth of that experience is not just a perspective; it is the perspective. That all of creation is meant to be from the human experience. Ki el ha'adam hu yared al Har Sinai, v'adam kareh shem kasher hu nimtzayla. V'davar zeh hu yesod gadol me'od me'od. Ra'ui lecha she'hayesod hazen neged einecha tamid. This is a great, great principle, Maharal. And it should be something before your eyes always. It's because of this that you have all of these descriptions in the Chumash. When it says Hashem is sad, or Hashem's nefesh is katzar, because of the way Am Yisrael are acting. It's not from Hashem's truth. But it really is so from the perspective of the receiver, from the human perspective. When we didn't act the way Hashem wanted, he was experienced by humanity at that time as being sad. And even though the joy is in Hashem's place, the human experience of the divine honor at that time was a place of sadness. That the Gemara says, Hashem ever sleep. It's also related to Purim. When Am Yisrael are not doing Hashem's will, so to speak, it's as if he's asleep. So that's called sleeping from the side of the experience of the receiver. That really is how Hashem is for the person who is the receiver in this world. So I want to just skip back up to an earlier parak that we saw a bunch of months ago. Toby saw with me way back when, sometime in May, just for these last 10 minutes. Oh, yeah. It's enough. Where is it? We had to close windows. There's like music outside. People were. Oh. The Maharal in chapter 7, way back. We were just in chapter 33. The Maharal in chapter 7, a lot. 70, I think. I think it's 70. Yeah, it's going to take us. We've been going since Pesach. We're at 33. It's well, this is about halfway through. That's a go. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We'll make a big party. Maybe we'll finish for Shavuos. That would be amazing. And he says about the human being. What have we said so far? That the psukim in the Chumash, this is the Maharal on anthropomorphism. The psukim in the Chumash are not just misleading, and we have to fix them and say something else, like how he's arguing very strongly against what the Rambam says that the Targum Onkelos is doing. And Targum says instead of Vayired, it's Ve'it Gili, that Hashem revealed. Don't say that that's because otherwise it would imply Gashmut, it would imply a physicality to God, and therefore we have to kind of whitewash the Chumash. Maharal very says, no, the Chumash doesn't say one word, not one drop of ink in the Chumash implies anything to lessen faith. You tell a 5-year-old Hashem came down to Har Sinai, it's because Hashem came down to Har Sinai. It's real. And it's real because, not just because the human experience, not just because the human experience is some silly thing that we have to live with. The human experience is real because all language is rooted in the human experience. Like we saw from that incredible midrash about Adam naming all of creation, naming himself, naming even HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is something that the Malachim were not capable of doing. Why? Because all language is relative, and so you have to choose a point that everything is relative to that point, and that's where language comes from. And so the human experience is the source of language itself. So it's not just that the Chumash dumbs itself down to the human experience. The human experience is what creates true language in the world. And Hashem made the world not to just be this angelic perfection of actualized consciousness that the angels are. Dafka wants people who are struggling to self-actualize. Dafka. And through that process, it's going to go forever. It's going to go forever, and it's deeper than just static perfection. And Dafka, that human perspective of change and of development and growth and ups and downs, the way they experience God is real. And God is really interacting with us in that way. Hashem wants to show anger to us sometimes, that we should ship up. Hashem wants to show simcha to us, that we should dance, etc. It's real. It's not just a child's thing or a extra or a b'diavad at all. It's totally true and totally real. Not one drop of ink in the Chumash would imply anything to make our faith less chas v'shalom or imply any physicality to God at all. It's just that it's doing what all language and all the whole universe does and is meant to do, and it is speaking to the depths of the truth of the human experience, which is just as true, and not. It's more. It is what is true. It is what is real. That's what's real. An amazing thing. So now he just in chapter 7, he's getting into this amazing thing about how Torah fits into this. I just thought it would be a nice thing to add on at the end.
It's like that we should not understand how Mama has name. Like it's okay that we don't understand.
It means that you read Hashem Kenan Har Sinai when you're making a Shebachar Banu, like the poskim say to think about Har Sinai. When you say that, you should think Hashem came down on Har Sinai, whatever that means for you. But that there was an experience of Hashem coming down and revealing, and not just.
I'm saying a child pictures it in one way.
As you grow, that's right.
I changed it.
Avada it changes. Of course, the Saber Ozen means to give hope to the ear. Rashi even says that. Rashi says that about Har Sinai. There's an amazing difference in Rashi and Chumash. It's we're going to have time to get to this chapter 17. So it is in one place at the beginning in Sefer Shmos, it says keep the Sar Sinai Bo'er. Kikivshan or Ketanur, I forgot exactly. It says a word there of a type of a furnace. And then in Vaischanan, when Moshe Rabbeinu is telling you, it says V'har Sinai Bo'er Ad Lev Hashemayim. The different lashon. Rashi points this out. He says because at first we heard it this way and understood it, then we understood it in a higher way. Lev Hashemayim. What is that? That's a very poetic, very there's that's what I'm saying to look up those Rashis. I don't have it exactly the wording right now, but if you look up those two Rashis, you'll see that, and he talks about that there's you understand it one way, and then you grow and you understand it a little bit different. But again, it's how you understand it, and that's true. It's not. There's real legitimacy to your experiences. Real legitimacy to experiences, not just like one day we'll get to that point where we'll just be like, everything is all just this unchanging, static perfection and nothing. That's the human experience. So here he gets into this further when he's speaking about the seed. V'da'od ki hagarin asher nizra ba'adama hu motzi ilanu perot ve'alin v'anafim. He's wrote this way back. The seed, it produces all these wonderful things, all these different things. And they come out in a very particular way. It makes this kind of leaf, makes this kind of tree, makes this kind of fruit. It makes its own way in its own wholesome completeness. This is the human thing. We have this gewaldic nefesh, and it comes down into this goof, and then we have to figure out a way to actualize that nefesh through the goof. And each nefesh is going to develop in its own special way. What's going to grow is leibish fruits, and you're going to make shmul fruits, and each one of us is going to make different things. And when the nefesh it actualizes, then it has a completeness. The difference is that a tree that produces and self-actualizes, that's all within nature. But when a yid self-actualizes through Torah and through mitzvahs, it's something above nature. But Adam, hakol mitzvah nefesh is from the specific, from the side of the soul. Ki ein malato achrona tivit klal. Our ultimate greatness is not something natural. Rak yesh la'adam nefesh elokit miucheret, and each one of us has a unique godly soul. Ukfi nafsho elokit nitano gam mitzvot miuchadot sheruimo, and because of that, we have particular mitzvahs that are that fit us. L'chach nasan shemesh berachat Torah v'hibilti tivis v'yedeze v'yadai yatsa adam l'fol b'shleimus, and it is through that we come to to actualizing the potential. And he says this beautiful sentence. He just ends it. He says, "V'lachein ein lecha lishol lama al yedei mitzvah zot hadam b'shleimut b'fa'al." You can't ask, why is it that through this particular mitzvah, why do I have to do that? Why can't I wear shatnez? Or why do I have to shake a lulav or whatever? Shevadai ein ze kushia. It's definitely not a question. K'moshe ein alecha lishol. The same way you can't ask, lama, why is an apple tree have to make apples? Same way you can't ask that. It's a beautiful. Kasher tzurav Torah kach, v'lo tzurav Torah b'inyan acher. How come it doesn't just make oranges one year? Raki davar zeh mitchev fi etzem hagarin. It's in it from its very essence, the DNA. Lefi nafsho asher Elokim, so it is by us. Tefillin and tzitzis and Yom Kippur. It's in us. This is how we self-actualize. This is our, and each one of us, in our own particular way, says nefesh elokit miyuchedet. Each one has a unique nefesh elokit. It's not the same. It's an amazing thing. It's a piece of God that's different from your piece of God. It's an amazing thing. And because we're each a story of development, so that makes us the real center of all of creation, and not these perfect angels who have that perspective of an unchanging, static God, and they're just burning up and doing their angel thing. They all wait for us to say Kadosh, Kadosh. It's our perspective and our experience and each step that we take in our journey that powers the whole thing. And therefore, all of this descriptions in Chumash of ups and downs and of God going down, coming up, being with us, sad, happy, etc., are not just childish things, are not anything that would impugn the depths of Emunah. Exactly the opposite. They strengthen our iman. You read these psukim, you tell these stories, they have a realness to them that is absolutely penetrating and magical. You could have different interpretations each time, but those psukim are there and they're not meant to be whitewashed. And what the Unclus is doing, he doesn't tell us in the end exactly what he thinks. Actually, he does say, he says, what is Unclus doing? It's not whitewashing, like he says at the end of Lamed Gimel, is our chapter. He's not whitewashing. What he's doing is he's trying. He's worried about something else. Not worried about that. It shouldn't sound physical that God descended, because it would be over physicalizing. He's worried simply about honor. It's not honorable. So he's just wanted to translate in an honorable way. That well, when Hashem was going, when it says Hashem went down to Mitzrayim with Yaakov, it's not a description. We don't want to ever say, even about a king, that the king went down. The king left his royal place. We just want to say it's a nicer way to say, but it wasn't because he was trying to whitewash any physicality that or the human experience of Hashem descending. He just wanted to translate descending in the most honorable way he could. But coming down to Mitzrayim with Yaakov, he says Eichutimach. He does translate as going down. So right. Therefore, because you don't need to translate it in an extra honorific way, because it doesn't imply Hashem leaving heaven or getting involved in lower matters. It doesn't imply anything to impugn the honor of Hashem. It just implies Hashem is with Yaakov and with Am Yisrael as they're going to Mitzrayim. That's what the Targum was doing. Nothing to do with saying that the concept of Hashem coming down at Har Sinai is problematic in and of itself. It's just a way of in the same way that we there are even times where we read words in the klala and the klalas, we say slightly different words than the way it's written. Okay, there's Rashi's there, etc. The point is that it's an honor thing. That's totally different, as Maharal, than trying to whitewash any physicality being ascribed to Hashem. There's clear questions? Yeah.
Person, be perfection.
Oh, so that's a gewalt. I mean, I think that's like, in other words, to my mind, what does it mean? Like, what's the goal, right? Because the end of chapter 7, she's asking, can process itself be perfection?
Is that like, are we saying that God is above time, God is above any type of.
Definitely.
And that's what we say.
In and from himself, me'amitat atzmo, right? But yet he creates a world where there is process and makes that central, makes the human story the center thing. So what does that mean? So this is that's I think I have to find where this Maharal. I think it's in the Gur Aryeh, the Chumash. I'll find it for next week. It says, what does it mean that the trees rebelled? The trees are supposed to be that the bark and the wood of the tree would be eitz pri ose pri. It's supposed to be periove so tam echad. It's supposed to be the same taste. And the trees rebelled, and then instead you have the wood tastes like wood, and then only the fruit tastes. He says the wood represents process, and the fruit represents goal. And so now in this life, in the galus, the process is bitter, and only the goal is sweet. But that's not how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be that the process is just as sweet as where you're going. So then it's speaking, but you're saying that to my mind, even though you do have, and he speaks about it at the end of chapter 7, he says, why is it that at the end of time there's a midrash that says that the Leviathan is going to jump out of the sea, and this huge mythic beast, the behemoth, will attack it, and the Leviathan will clamp its jaws on the throat of the behemoth, and the behemoth's horn will kill the Leviathan, and they'll both die, and then we'll make a Suda from them. We'll have the fish from the sea and the meat, and the good meat from the Leviathan. And he says, but it's not shechted. It's not, the Midrash says, right? It's not kosher. So kol nevila achol lo tochel, pamim ata ochel, pamim lo tochel. It's very far out Midrash in Beker Rabbah, Parsha Yud Daled. So the Maharal says, end of chapter 7 here, he says, because the Isser of Shechita was in order for us to be able to self-actualize now throughout Golus. Once Mashiach comes, we won't need Shechita anymore to self-actualize. We'll already kind of be. Now, does that mean that we're going to be fully self-actualized? Going to be like over? Mashiach is going to come, and this is a big question for me. They're placed in Kutim Ran, it's Mashma Torah Chaf Aleph, that we won't have the same Bechira, we won't have the same free choice once Mashiach comes. What does that mean? What's going to happen to being human? You know, like what's going to happen to our beloved process? Are things going to be tzaddikim yoshvim v'itraseim berosheim v'nenim ziv hashchina? They're sitting with their crowns on their heads or in their heads, and just getting hana from the shechina. Does that mean that we're just like that's it? Like it's, I can't. I think is at the end of brachas and the end of Yevamos and the end of another Masechta, I forgot which one, which is Yechul Michayil El Chayil Tzaddikim Ein Menucha L'Bal Mazeh Ba'Ulo B'Olam Haba. There's no menucha, not in this world and not in the next, even not in the next. And it seems to me that it means that there'll be a graduation to a different kind of self-actualizing, a different kind of process that is sweet, that it's hard for us to now we're in the no pain, no gain world. There's like Rafum, Tzara, Agra, we're in that world, and you can't quite see how it could be different. Like, how could it be that there will be no pain and there'll be a gain? It's harder to relate to that now. To the Mitzrayim, only because of Mitzrayim do I appreciate Cherus, right? But there is such a thing as going from good to better, and not only from bad to good. For sure, there must be, right? It can't just be that you need bad in order to have good. Can't be. That this, the whole thing must be just like, I'll just end with one little thing I saw from Rav Vichi Meyer. He says, Vichi Meyer said b'shem the Kotzker. The Kotzker used to drink on the 16th and 17th of Adar. And the Hasidim said to him, Rebbe, it's only a Havamina. And the Gemara says, there's no way those days could be Purim. You know this one? Oh, could be. So the Kotzker said, yeah. He said, it's only a Havamina. Havamina means like a first thought. And a Maskana means the conclusion. So he says, it's only a Havamina. Maskana is not. But this whole world is a Havamina. The whole world we're in now is just like a first thought, and Olam Haba is the maskana, is the conclusion of how things will really be. So, but I need to drink on the Havamina to give strength to us now in this world. So, l'chaim, we should be strong in our processes.
L'chaim, l'chaim.
L'chaim, l'chaim.